Welcome back to the All Figured Out podcast. My name is Andrea Barr. Welcome to the show. It is great to have you here again. I don't know if anyone here listens to Yoto or if their children listen to Yoto, but I really like doing impressions of the host. I think his name is Jake, and I'm not going to do the British accent, but I feel like I was just channeling Jake there for a moment. So there you go. And my podcast editor's name is Jake. So hello, Jake. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the Yoto guy, the voice of Yoto. Anyways, we're going to get into it. This is an episode. It's a good one. It's a really good one. If you have ever thought I'm doing it all and somehow I still just don't feel like me, this episode is going to be your exhale. It might be confronting for a moment, and then you're going to be like, damn it, yes, this is exactly what I need to do. My guest today is Fiona Walsh. She is a coach, and she is the creator of the Inner Freedom Method, which is a process that blends neuroscience-based mindset tools with somatic practices, which help high-achieving people, parents, and leaders just recalibrate their life. She's fantastic. We will get into what all of that stuff means, the neuroscience-based mindset tools, what somatic practices actually are, all of that. We're going to get into it. You won't be left in the dark if you don't know what that is. Fiona has an extremely rare gift. She's extremely intuitive, and she can help just step into your story. And I just know, I've never worked with her, but I can just tell she will just name exactly what's going on beneath the surface of your polished exterior. There's so many people that I work with who have said to me, my life looks and is amazing on the outside. Why doesn't it feel as good on the inside as it feels on the outside? And that is something that I would say Fiona can just dial right into and help you sort through, which is incredible. Things like perfectionism, people pleasing, these are all survival patterns, is what she says, that once made you super successful, but can create burnout, especially when you add kids into the mix. In our conversation, we unpack her powerful thesis kind of in this conversation, which is that most working parents aren't overwhelmed because they're doing life wrong. They're overwhelmed because they're still running with this old pattern and this old way of being that they were using before they had children. And it just no longer fits. We talk about identity recalibration after kids, how to work with your nervous system so you can stop spiraling and start actually responding, and what releasing really means. There's all this release this thing in the past. How do you do that? She helps us with that. And I'm going to be honest, I felt deeply seen in this episode. I called it out at the very end and I said, I feel like you're just speaking to me. We don't even know each other that well. We've had one lovely coffee date, but that's it. And so this one hit me to my core, and I suspect there's going to be some of you out there who it does for as well. If that is you, can you please drop me a message? Send me a note on Instagram at allfiguredoutandrea, because I want to know that I'm not alone in these feelings of being extremely seen. I'm not going to spoil it anymore. I will let you just hear how this conversation unfolds. I know you're going to love it. So without further ado, I give you Fiona Walsh. This is All Figured Out. I'm Andrea Barr. I'm a career coach for parents, a mom of two, and I absolutely believe that you can continue to grow personally and professionally while protecting family time. We're about to figure out this work, life, and parenting stuff out together. Fiona Walsh, thank you so much for joining me on the All Figured Out podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It is so fun to be on this end of the mic. You so graciously had me on your podcast, Limitless, which was episode 40. If you go check out Fiona's episode there, I'll link it in the show notes. And I have to say that was it was 100% the most vulnerable and open I've ever been on a podcast, being interviewed by someone else. So thank you for that. As they say in the Wicked press tour, thank you for holding the space. I so appreciated it.
No, my pleasure. And holding space is what I love to do. So,
do you know the reference I'm talking about?
Yes. I love Wicked.
That press tour was just the best. Oh, I loved all the content coming out of it. And I was in a movie this past weekend, and they the trailer for the second one. I hadn't actually watched it, but it was like I was a captive audience. Oh my gosh. And the second one and like For Good was playing and I was like, "Oh, my musical theater small child inside is just dying." So,
Yep, I'm with
anyways,
you. I'm with you.
oh,
Massive good fan as well, and musical theatre was my jam. So,
I forgot. We have this in
yeah,
common. Oh,
we have
I
this in
knew I
common.
loved you. Knew I loved you. Well, thank you again for having me on your podcast. And it's so fun to turn things around. And I'm going to start in a very different way. I think we were talking about this before. Oftentimes in episodes, I'll be like, okay, take me back. What's your career story? How'd you become a parent? I want to start with a quote from you that you left on my podcast submission form. So, peek behind the curtain. I send all my guests this form and I ask them a few questions just to be like, is there anything you want to, like, topics off limit? And I always ask, and it's one of my favorite questions that I even ask like coaching clients now. I say, what is your thesis? If you were to shout something from the rooftops, what would it be? And I want to read, I took snippets of this and put it together. I want to read what you wrote. And then I got a big question after that. Okay. This is what Fiona Walsh wrote. It is so beautiful. Oh my gosh. Okay. What I've come to believe is this. Most working parents aren't overwhelmed because they're doing life wrong. They're overwhelmed and under pressure because they're still running an old wiring that no longer fits who they've become. The pressure to be everything to everyone. Oh, that hits. The constant overthinking, the guilt for not doing enough, even when you're doing it all. This isn't just a mindset problem. You can't reframe, talk, or strategize your way out of it. The real power move is identity recalibration, trusting yourself. Then we can soften. We feel more present, more powerful, and more like ourselves, not because we figured it all out, love that part, but because we've come home to who we actually are. How the hell did you figure all of that out?
Well, it wasn't like a overnight kind of thing, and I will be super honest that I'm still in the figuring it out journey. I don't know if any of us ever fully figure it out. But I want to take you back, and it wasn't that many years ago. So in COVID, when a lot of us had our own existential crises, we were stuck at home with kids, and I had little kids at home. So I became a mum and had a very busy toddler when I found out I was pregnant with twins. So I had 3 kids in 2 years. And so my twins were 18 months old when COVID hit. So we were still really in the thick of it with a 3.5-year-old and 18-month-old twins, and then trying to work from home. And I remember going through lots of those questions, like many of us did, of like, who do I want to be? Is this the kind of work I want to be doing? Like, and I think becoming a parent, you go through that, but I think it was probably heightened or elevated because of the pressure cooker that we were all experiencing from COVID. And I was asking all these questions and trying to be everything to everyone. I was not aware of the fact that I had my own protective patterns which were in place. So very much high achiever, high performer, wanting to do it all, type A personality, control freak, if I was really honest with myself, and also really strong people-pleasing tendencies. So super adaptable, could do it all, could hold it all, keep everyone happy. But most people pleasers who are also coupled with high achievers actually get to a stage where you realize that you have a ceiling of how much you can hold. And so I hit that ceiling in just after COVID. And interestingly, I didn't burn out in the typical like ending up at the doctor or hospitalized, which I've got some friends and clients who have been through. I just lost all sense of who I was and what my purpose was in the world. And so I felt lost and lonely in this very busy, full life, which is a really horrible place to find yourself. And I know I'm not alone in finding that place because so many people might be there listening, or they've been there and they're like, oh, fuck, I remember. And so the turning point was sitting on the couch at home and looking around, and there was like, we were still in COVID, washing everywhere, toys everywhere, everything was a gong show, just disorganized chaos. And I had tried a lot of things. Like, I was big into neuroscience and mindset. I'd done like reframing, positive affirmations. Like, I'd read the books. I'd had a leadership coach at work who was very supportive. So I'd talk through a lot of things with her. But I got to a stage where I was sitting in this room covered with everything everywhere. And I realized that my mind actually was busier and more discombobulated than the room that I was looking at. And I remember saying to my partner, I'm like out. I'm out of ideas. And I was always an ideas person. I could always find a solution. Very optimistic, very positive, always find a solution. I was like, I'm officially out. And I can't think my way out of this. I can't talk my way out of this. I actually don't know what to do. And we were sitting there, and then I heard this like voice in my head that was like, it's you, only you can change this. And so I went from probably being a bit martyrish and victim of like, this is all happening to me and I'm out of control, to like, all right, let's figure out what's going on here and let's try a different approach. Because clearly, like, what got me to here and my identity and who I was and how I approached life and how I solved problems and looked for solutions and how I used my mindset had reached its peak and it wasn't working anymore. And so I was really emotionally burnt out. And so I had always wanted to do a yoga retreat. And so I was talking to my other half. The next week, all 5 of us had COVID. It was the week where we all got taken down, which every family dreaded. But then once you're in it, you're like, okay, it's really awful, but at least we'll just watch Paw Patrol nonstop because we're not capable of doing anything else. And I booked this yoga retreat in Tulum. And what was interesting was I went and I got a 5-day break from my kids, and I hadn't had a break since they'd been born. So that was part of it as well in terms of like living overseas from my family. I had never really had a break. So I was, burnt out emotionally and physically. And when I was there in a breathwork session, I had a full heart-opening, awakening experience. It really cracked me open. And when the tuning fork of the facilitator, he put it on my chest, it felt like in the breathwork that my entire chest ripped open, my heart exploded out, and I saw all these colorful lights. And like, it was really beautiful. And I was very intellectually trained at that stage, so it made no sense whatsoever. I was in like, holy fuck, what was that? But knowing that something crazy but incredible had happened, magical had happened, but didn't have the words or the sense making around it. And then 2 days later in a Reiki session, the first one I'd ever done as well, this is still at the retreat, when the facilitator read my chakras, when she got to your heart chakra, she was like, she had information on the different ones, like your root and this. She got to my heart. She was like, oh my God, your heart chakra was just like wide open, like more than I've ever seen. And I remember sitting there going, holy shit, how do you know? And she was like, what? And I told her about the breath work. And so it was in that moment that my thinking, cognitive part of my identity had to take a back seat. And I had to believe in something way bigger than what made sense to me because I felt it so strongly in my body. And that was the beginning of me beginning to understand how intuitive I was, how I probably always had been, but I had shut down that part of me many, many decades ago. And so after that, I came back, and it was a bit of a bumpy integration, as you can imagine, crashing back to reality. But I did get some pretty big cues from the universe after leaving the retreat around internal family systems. And so that was my first sort of step into like, let's take a different approach. This is not talk-based therapy. This is not cognitive. It's not like a psychology-based model. It's a body-based model. And you go into like a hypnotic state. And so that was my like first step. And I like fell in love with that. And then started to unravel from there. And I guess part of that journey was after the retreat, I came back and I made the decision to leave my corporate job and go out on my own and become an entrepreneur, which I had always told myself that I wasn't an entrepreneur. Like I like my friends who had done it a few years before, I was like, oh my God, I'm so proud of you. You're like so brave. That's just not for me. And so some of the stories that you can already hear coming through from me were part of my original identity around being a people pleaser and wanting to please everyone and being very adaptable, but not saying no to things and then self-abandoning and then like not liking myself for doing that, to be telling myself that I'm only good in corporate and I'm a really high performer in corporate, but there's no way I could run my own business. And so this is the journey that I've been on to really step into my Fiona 2.0, who is a really different person in terms of the story she tells herself, her ability to catch self-doubt or inner critics when they come online, because they were ruling her inner world. And this is not just special to me. Most of my coaching clients, when we start, they're inner critics speaking 95 to 100% of the time. Mm-hmm. And they're being guided by that, which is by fear and lack and scarcity, rather than where I'm stepping into now, which is being guided by my intuition, by my heart, my purpose, and way more, and from a position of like trust and not needing to know and not always having the path mapped out or the strategy or the plan, but just leaning into what feels good, where does my energy want to go. And it really is like this huge recalibration that I've gone through, from very masculine, strategic, successful corporate energy to coaching people into like understanding how their brain is taking charge, but then guiding them back into their body somatically so that they can really release the blocks that are keeping them stuck and recalibrate to a new identity, which is built on like trust and freedom and joy and liberation and all the things that we'd all be like, hell yes, sign me up.
Oh, wow. That is such an incredible story. Thank you so much for sharing that. There's so much in there that I think is so, I know is so relatable. I hear it with clients every day in my work. I feel it every day. My inner critic is too loud for like the type of work that I do. The knowing that I know it's too loud. And so you're even making me pause to reflect and be like, that hits. If we take it back to that moment before you went to Tulum, how did you know? I know you said that you kind of said, I'm out of ideas. What else was happening in your world? Like with your kids, with your parenting, how else was it showing up as that? I know people throw around the word burnout, but I'm trying to look. I asked this to quite a few people who have come on who've shared their burnout. And I always love knowing just, what are some of the signs and symptoms that people could be looking out for?
Yeah. Okay. So, one I said before as well is like feeling like I had no sense of direction or purpose or clarity. So sort of like lost in life. Not knowing what you wanted to be when you grow up was something I'd always, but this was a way deeper sense of like no ideas, like used to have different, irons in the fire. And I was like, I have nothing left. Waking up exhausted, even after 8 or 9 hours sleep. And this was after my kids were starting to sleep a little bit better. Not getting the joy out of things that used to light me up. So, and even I got to the stage where I just felt so overwhelmed with things that I'd say no to social things or no to things where I'm like extroverted. So connection is so important to me and it's one of my 3 core values. But I was unconsciously saying no to things because I was so stressed and trying to manage everything, but I actually was not creating space for myself. So I wasn't getting that ability to like feel the connection or the support from others. Trying to think if there's any others. One of the things I would say as well, like in terms of when I said I was out of ideas as well, like I had in COVID changed roles internally at work. So I'd like moved into a role that I pretty much co-created with one of the leaders around culture because I was really passionate about it. And I was making moves in different parts of my life to try and ignite this spark again. So I wasn't sitting back in the like, oh my God, poor me, what am I going to do kind of, which I was at times, but there I was really trying out different things. And that's one thing I would always recommend to people who feel like they're in a bit of a hole is like pick one area of your life where you do have an idea of what might interest you or might give you some enjoyment or might light you up a bit and see how that goes. And so I think that I was doing that at work and I'd done a few things outside of work as well, but I felt like I kept hitting roadblocks. And I think the roadblocks was because I was making choices around who I had been rather than who I was stepping into. And when I became a mum, I fundamentally changed as a human being, and I wasn't able to recognize that until more recently, to be honest. Even at that time, I was like, I can be a mum and I'll be an executive and everything's going to be great.
Well, it's almost like I hear this so much too, where it's these I typically work with incredibly high performers, high people pleasers, really badass women typically in business. And then they become a mom and all those tendencies, they've been able to mask it. They've been able to kind of hide it. They've been able to function through it. But then you have these little mouths and these little cuties that are running around in your life. And then your dependency, like your partnership with your partner becomes even more necessary to be in sync. And just all these things just become so heightened. And then all of a sudden you're like, crap, I don't have that extra space to kind of just flail about in the other areas of my life when I'm just like masking so hard at work and I'm like putting on this face and I'm like, okay, I can do this. And maybe it's almost like sometimes where if you're somebody who planned to have a family, you're like, hey, I can keep doing this because I know I want to have a family and maybe things will change. But no one prepares us for what happens when that change comes. When we fundamentally change as humans, if you wanted to be a parent, you know that change, you've heard that change is coming, but no one's like, okay, and here's what you do with that. And I think that's why you and I are in business because it's like, I'm like, who was there for me? I have beautiful support systems, but not really in this particular way on this particular issue, if you call it. So when we're talking about your healing, I have said on the podcast before, and I have a feeling you'll agree with this, but fight me on this.
Yeah.
There's so many people out there who use the term like healing and the work. And I know that the work is, what's her name? Byron Katie. Like there's like a whole, like, there's a book called The Work. So that's separate. But I've always said that like, as somebody who's in this space, I feel annoyed on behalf of people who aren't in the personal and professional development space because they hear all this jargon in these words and it feels so other. So I will just say that like, it's funny when we're about to get into it. So I want to like, let's break it right down because the work that you do is so cool and so important. And it's actually work that I don't know a lot about, internal family systems. So first of all, what is your reaction to my beef with like this whole like, the work and whatever. And then let's get into it. Let's break it all down. Like, what is the stuff that helped you heal?
I'm with you on the beef. I think that the personal development world it's just too big. There's too many players who promise way too much, and most of it is bullshit. There's two things. One is, and also around healing, I'm not a big believer in that you can outsource your healing or your so you talked about in my intro around like these protective patterns that are in your in your nervous system that are protecting you from things that have happened in the past, which means they're stored in your subconscious mind or your body, in your cells. That work, you can like pay people, particularly spiritual people, to like do energetic healing and things like that. It is way more effective when you do it yourself, like anything. So if you can work with a coach or a therapist who can guide you into your body where you are actually releasing it yourself, that it works so much faster and it's empowering because you did it. You didn't just pay someone money and get a like voice recording about, oh yeah, I've like released your grandma's people pleasing tendency from, and this and that. So healing, I believe, or letting go of things that are blocking you is best done when you can do it. And so, but the thing is that we all need people to help us get there. And so that's where coaches can be really helpful. Therapists can too. And I have used both. And I would say the difference, if people are interested in that, therapists very much focus on what happened in the past. In my type of coaching, we definitely go back to the past, because your imprints from your childhood or things that happened to you in the past are what are causing these protective patterns as you today. But we go back and resolve them and release them. But then there's a very strong forward focus of like, so who are you stepping into? And this is what we call identity recalibration. Like, who do you want to be, rather than being stuck in these patterns of the past? Both work. I'm not like, I've, as I said, done both, but I prefer coaching personally.
Okay, so when you're talking about releasing, I mean, we all have that. I think it was such a beautiful visual thinking about you in Tulum with like your heart expanding and exploding. I assume that's not what you're talking about every time. That's like a great experience that you had. Say somebody is like, this sounds really cool. What the fuck does that actually mean? Like, what does it mean to release some? Like, could you give like a small example, or use me if you want?
Yeah.
Like, what is like,
Yeah, sure.
what is it? How do you release it?
Yeah, cool. So what happens is we will have things that happen to us when we were like a child, for example. A lot of these, it's best to go back to the original time it happened. So say, I'll take an example that most people happen. So when you're a kid, you're in an environment, and for the first, you think you're eating a bit, you're 4 years old, and at 4, most kids believe that they're enough, that they're loved, that they're worthy, all the beautiful things. And then you're at something and you overhear for the first time, maybe an adult or another kid saying things about you that makes you for the first time doubt yourself or no longer believe that you're enough.
Oh, I hate this. I hate those people.
But it happens, right? Everyone had a moment where they felt rejected for the first time. And so most of us won't remember that specific moment, but what we felt in that moment, for the first time, our body went into survival mode because there was a social threat of rejection and not belonging, which we're primarily wired for, wanting to belong, wanting to be loved. Yep. And if in that moment you didn't have like a mum or dad or a guardian there who saw it and caught it and was able to sit with you and help you process that feeling, it leaves an imprint in your subconscious mind. And your subconscious mind is not your awareness space. You're unaware of it. And so that sits there, and over the years, you pick up more and more of these, because this stuff happens all the time. This is why when parents who try and like wrap their kids in cotton wool and say you're the best no matter what are actually not preparing them particularly well for life. Because as I say to my kids, like, people will say unkind things to you throughout your life. It's how you choose to respond to them is the most important thing, not actually the words that they said to you. And so fast forward to like you're 35 and you're at work and you did this really cool presentation, or you've launched something in your business and you're like, oh my God, killing it. And then you overhear someone say, oh my God, like, what a stupid offer Andrea's put out, as if anyone's going to buy that. Or someone, trolls you on social media, or in corporate, people are like, oh, she's really lost her edge. Wow.
Oh, yes.
Is that because she probably didn't sleep much? She's a mum, these days.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
2 examples, because I know you'll have corporate and entrepreneurial listeners. So that comment was harsh and is enough to make you upset, triggered, activated, all the things. Your body goes into survival mode. It also in your system goes zing, 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 all the way back to your 3 or 4-year-old who also heard that for the first time. And so these are the imprints or the wounds. Everyone uses different words, right, that we all have, unfortunately. And our body is constantly trying to keep us safe from those instances because we don't want to feel that way. We don't want to feel alone and overwhelmed and not enough. And so when I take people into a somatic coaching experience, and I use some internal family systems and then I use other methodologies as well, but it's very much somatic. We give your brain, we literally tell your brain to take a little break because it's not needed. Where this stuff is stored, your intellectual mind cannot process. And so, because if it could, it would have done so already, especially if you've done mindset work and personal development work. And then we go into it's like a meditative state where you're guided into your body and we will go to a sensation in your body where, and it could be anywhere. And everyone's always surprised because they're like, I don't know if this is going to work on me. And I was the same. I was like, oh, my brain won't go offline. But your body is dying to talk to you. And it has so much wisdom and intelligence. It's just that we rarely give it the mic. And we're conditioned, society is very much in their head, Western society. So this is like a normal, no one's like, you didn't do anything wrong. It's just how we've been programmed as humans. But when we go into our body and then we notice sensations in our body, we can go and then interact with that sensation. We can ask it questions. We can inquire about it. And through this process of curiosity and inquiry, different things happen for different people, but we're able to access either the protective part that's coming in there to be like, I don't want my little Andrea to get hurt, so I'm going to jump in and take over whenever something like this happens. We can have a memory that pops that was you see yourself at 3 and that happening. You're like, holy crap, I didn't realize that when my auntie said that's this. And so there's different ways that the sensation can communicate with us. Some people see visuals and symbols. Some people feel it in their body. Some people will feel the emotion. And what we do is we go to that whatever's presenting in anyone's body. So it's very specific or bespoke to the individual and what's coming up for them. And because you're in a safe nervous system state, it's trauma informed, and I'm holding I'm co-regulating with you. So I'm making sure that you stay grounded and don't freak out. You're able to go back to that original memory and feel it. And when we feel it safely, an emotion and feeling only needs to be felt for 30 to 60 seconds, and then it dissolves.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yeah. And so this is what I do in most of my sessions. We go back in. Sometimes we'll go in with it, like a few of my clients recently, we've gone in with bullying, like workplace bullying or in business, if you've had, like all different kinds of bullying take place, unfortunately, for entrepreneurs, a business partner going bad and things like that. So you can go in with a specific intention around, like, we want to explore what is this protective pattern in my body, like coming online to protect me from being hurt and bullied. Or you can just go in and be like, what's my body ready to share? And then what comes up can be a whole variety of things. Like I never know when we go in what's going to come up. And a lot of it is my heart opening in Tulum was a really beautiful one. A lot of the work I do with people, it's when we go down there, it's really sad, and there's a lot of emotion and grief that comes up. But because you're in a space where you're being held by a coach, someone who's guiding you there, you feel very safe to feel it. And then the tears stop, and then you come out of it and you can talk about it to integrate it so your brain can make sense of what just happened. And then it's resolved.
And what do you do? What does a person do next? Once you can resolve, say, the workplace bullying, I think that's a really potent example. And you're like, okay, I feel like internally I've been able to hug that bullied child.
Part of me. Yeah.
Of me,
yep.
Whatever. Is it just one of those mysteries of life that we just have to accept, that like we're not really sure what the magic is, but you are able to move forward and just have it not rock you as much? Or like, what does the integration look like next?
Yeah. So you won't, everyone's looks different. Like straight away afterwards, some people can be really tired and exhausted because you've had you've been holding on to it for like 40 years. Some people feel like high and light and joyful and like, woo! Um, so a couple of things that happen. When we release these imprints or these wounds, it creates space in our emotional and energetic body for new energy to flow. So most people are like, oh my God, I've had the best ideas come through. My creativity is like flowing. I haven't had creativity in like 6, 12 months since I've been, burnt out. So your life force energy rushes to that spot and fills it. And so you can have great ideas. You can just be more tolerant with your kids. Oh yeah, that was what sorry, back earlier, the question around like my noticing of burnout. My fuse with my kids was really low. Like I was not able to hold as much of their emotion, like help them with their co-regulation because I was just being triggered way too much. But yeah, so you you'll have more empowerment so that when you're in a situation and somebody might start to speak to you in a certain way, you'll definitely, I'm not going to say you're like cured because you'll still be like, oh, that was pretty harsh. But you won't go into this spiral of like survival mode where you shut down and you can't operate and you don't know what to say. So if I'm working with someone who's a people pleaser and we've already done some coaching around boundaries, when someone starts to bully them at work, they will be way more empowered because they've brought up their capability in terms of people pleasing and released the wounds that were keeping them stuck there. That they might just say, feel confident for the first time to say something like, this is getting a little bit too heated. I'm going to step away and take a break. I'd really love to reconvene when we can both return and have a neutral conversation that's not charged.
Right.
And like people pleasers haven't been able to say those words because when you get triggered, your brain, like cognitively, you go offline. So the words don't come. So you go into fight or flight or freeze or fawn response, which is a stress response. And you aren't even able to pull on the tools that you might be learning. So that's why you do need to work on the nervous system as well as building new skills in areas that you might be lacking. So like if you knew you grew up in a household where it was good girl and good boy and we're good children and all that sort of stuff, then you should be fairly likely that you've got a pleaser part and a tendency to please, have a struggle saying no, overextending yourself. And so there's work to release that part, but then there's also going to be likely some skill building around skills like boundaries that you never had to use.
I like that. Okay, I understand. I can see that layered approach. So it's like the releasing what wasn't, what was holding you back or bringing you into that triggered state more and more and more and very easily. We've all experienced those people at work where you're like, it's not the email that's the issue. There's something else under the hood here that you just haven't explored. Like that's such real life. But then it's things like all these tools that we start to learn about as we get older and the beauty of your 30s and 40s when you're like, oh, boundaries. Oh, like habits, just stuff like that. So, okay, to clarify, this is called somatic work. Like, is that the somatic work?
Somatic coaching, yeah.
Somatic coaching. So if someone's like, okay, great, I'm going to go work with Fiona in this work, that's what that is. Or if in their own area, they want to start to explore this. A lot of counselors are starting to dabble in this. Coaches are dabbling in this space, kind of bringing in, you'll notice it in your yoga classes, like really kind of tuning into that. So can you define somatic work? Like somatic is integration
somatic
with the body?
Somatic means in the body.
Okay.
And so some people will say body. I also say the subconscious mind. So your mind is not just, where we think our brain is. It's mind, not brain.
Yes.
So you have a conscious part and a subconscious part of your mind. The conscious part of your mind is what you know and you have control over and you have autonomy over. The subconscious is like your memories, the stories, the assumptions you hold about the world that you may not be aware of because they only come up when you hit up against someone else who's got a different view of the world. Okay. It could be unspoken truths. There's a whole lot of stuff that's in your subconscious. And we know that we don't actually use our subconscious part of our mind, and it's a way bigger real estate in our whole like makeup. It's about 90 to 95% of us.
So
and
cool.
So that's why this really is a evolutionary place where a lot of coaches and therapists are exploring this, because it's where the root cause of all your blocks and all your triggers and all your heartache and all the things that you are not happy about in your life and yourself, they're all in your subconscious mind, and that means in your body, depending on how you want to term it. They're not in your conscious mind. And if you have been in talk-based therapy for years and you've talked and talked and talked and talked and thought and thought and thought, it might be a good idea to try some somatic-based work, because it just takes a different approach. And as I said before, our body is so wise, and our body's intelligence is such a hugely untapped resource. And when we give it the mic, it is absolutely astounding what it has to share with us. And it's even more astounding and almost magical at how quickly we can release things that we thought we had to just live with for the rest of our lives. And when we undo these blocks and these imprints, we're undoing not only just things that hurt us in the past or overwhelming memories, we're also undoing the programming or conditioning that has occurred to us over the years as well, like the good girl, or in corporate. So different things that happen in your childhood around who you should be and how you should show up in the world. Because we were all put on this earth with our own purpose, and then lots of conditioning happens. And this somatic work helps you undo the conditioning so you can really come home to your own purpose and who you want to be. And when you start living from that place, from a place of like purpose and self-trust, it's the most freeing and liberating thing you can ever do.
What do you tell the person who says, I'm still looking for my singular purpose, and they're really thinking of it as if it's like this treasure in a beach, that they're like, okay, where is my purpose? I can't find it. And they're digging and there's so much turmoil, and you can just see how hard it is for them. What is your take on defining what purpose is?
Okay, so I've got 2 parts answer. The first part is, if you think about you as a little perfect baby who was born with a purpose, and then these comments like, you're not good enough, you're not loved, you failed, you rejected, they're creating all these shields or veils or armor, Brene Brown's body of work, all these shields, veils, armor around you to protect you from those comments which hurt you when you heard them. You need to do the work to peel back those layers in order to get back to your purpose. Your purpose isn't missing. You've just lost yourself from it. But I believe that it's a remembrance. It's truly in you. It's about pulling back the layers that are blocking you from remembering who you are and why you were put on this earth. If you would like to explore a few ideas to see does it stick or not, a really good way is looking at this is not my model at all. I heard Jay Shetty share it on a podcast, but he talked about, think about things that you're truly passionate about, that you love to do. And if you can convert that into a way in that it serves others, so it's not just about making you feel good and lighting you up, it switches into service of others, then that switches from something that you're passionate about to something that is part of your purpose, because you're able to take a passion and use it to help or serve or empower others.
I like that a lot. So I'm kind of hearing I love the remembering. I'm going to be honest. I think I got that from TikTok, which is so crazy. That TikTok is like my continuing education. But no, I do my own continuing education. But truly, there's just some really interesting psych talk or whatever it is out there. And that whole notion of remembering that everything is already within you. It's layering and intuition and all that. I think it's just so beautiful. Yeah. And then it's the purpose is something, I like to think of it as like something bigger than yourself, is kind of what I'm hearing from you. It's what's the stuff that lights you up, that makes you super excited. And I think when people are looking for their purpose, what I've noticed too is they're looking for this needle in a haystack, when it's like, no, what's your haystack? Like, it doesn't have to be this very
Mm.
specific. Someone's like, okay, am I supposed to pick a thing? Is it supposed to be animal rights? Am I supposed to like, okay, I love animals, so like that's my purpose? It's like, no, you have a care, like you have a deep passion for like the equality of all living beings or something. Like that's a bigger version of the thing that you love. Like I love musical theater. Okay, I love the expression of creativity and maybe somebody's purpose around that could be like I facilitate the experiences of creativity. And also, I don't know that people need to get so hung up on the words. I am a big stickler for that. If somebody is telling you you have to come up with a value set, 3 to 5 values that you need to remember, a purpose statement that you need to remember, and that's the
Mm.
only way you can live a beautiful life, I call BS on
Mm.
that personally because not everybody that is speaking from the cognitive, oh, now I'm getting on my soapbox. But that
Mm.
comes from that, like when you're talking about that prefrontal cortex, very
Yeah.
thinking, very corporate bro mind. It's like, for somebody to like put things into words, like I'm having a hard time doing right now, is like,
Yeah.
that's too literal. But you could
Mhm.
feel your purpose and not know how to articulate it, but be like, okay, I know who I am. I'm remembering who I am. I'm remembering what I believe, what is
Mm.
important to me, who like my guiding lights, my
Yeah.
angels, whatever.
Yep.
And I don't have words for it. And I also think that's okay. And we're getting to this is another piece of shit that
Mm.
we're adding to the to-do list that we're
Yeah.
like, oh God, and now I don't have a purpose, Got to get the groceries, got to do this, and haven't found my purpose yet. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
that is just
And
a lot.
well, and also you're not going to find it cognitively because
No,
it's in your, depending on what you believe in, it's in your soul, it's in your heart. It's not in your brain.
no.
Newsflash, your purpose is not in your brain. It's heart led. So do something, either yoga or dance or anything, qigong. I know a lot of guys doing qigong now. Like, do something that tells your brain, have a little break, let my body lead. And I'm not anti values. I think they're great anchor points, but I call
Totally.
them your like heart led internal GPS. So, how do you feel? So, I've got, as I said before, a value around connection. And it's more about how do I want to feel when I'm connected?
Mm,
It's not words on a page, it's not thoughts, it's all around the feeling and the embodiment of what connection feels like and is a lived experience from an emotional point of view for me. And the same with purpose. When you do something that is in purpose, you will know.
it's so true. And that could be a beautiful dinner out with your partner.
Yes, it's not, doesn't need to be
It doesn't have
work
to
as
be saving the
well.
whales all the time.
Yeah.
Why is it always saving the whales? I love saving the whales, but like people are taking on quite literally the weight of the world and thinking, okay, I am choosing and so excited and honored to be raising these humans. And I need to be taking on the weight of the entire world as well, because that's the only purpose that's worth living. And I don't know, I'm just like, this is bringing up, like, I feel like I'm like speaking on behalf of like the tired parents out there, And I know you're agreeing with this.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
rest. Like, a rested version of you, from what I'm hearing from you, Fiona, is like the rested parent, the parent who is coming home to themselves, is that collection of parents is like that. Who is it? It's not Margaret Mead. The quote that's like, never underestimate like what a small mighty group of people can do, because like
Mm.
those are the only people who have ever changed the world. I'm paraphrasing, but like that is it's so true. And like this like small group of rested parents who are raising wonderful little humans because they're feeling more present. Like, isn't that what we're all after? And aren't
Oh,
those the people who
yeah.
are changing the world one little human at a time?
Yeah. I mean, I think so because when, like, I see it with my clients, someone who I just wrapped a coaching container up with last week, when they began, and this was only 4.5 months ago. That's why this like work totally blows my mind and how quickly it really works. They were talking about being in this fog and in this puddle, drowning in a puddle, and they felt disconnected from their kids and their partner. and they had changed jobs similar to like I had, and it was working out, but they were still pleasing in this new environment, and it was just super high achiever, by the way, as well, super duper high achiever. But then quietly so stuck in self-doubt and pressure on themselves and trying to hold it all, the other half, the kids, the job, the aging parents, the whole shebang, which is very relatable.
Yeah.
And in their last session, some of the things, and this is the stuff that I love, this is like the tangible stuff that they said were celebrating in themselves, was that because they'd released these blocks, and as you know, I said, it creates space so ideas flow in. They were like, oh my God, last night when I was putting my kids to bed, I had a novel idea, to write a novel. I've always dreamed of writing a book. I had characters, through lines, maybe a sequel, the whole book dropped in. And
No
they were like,
way.
and I was like, okay, well, like, off you go, start writing. They said they were, little things, like they said they like went out for dinner with their friends, and like in the past they were stressed, and the kids okay at home, and if they got food and they're going to go to bed on time, and if I've got to get home and log on for work and da da da. They sat at this dinner and they looked around at their friends and they were like, I'm so grateful for these humans in my life and for this moment. Like, it sounds a little wanky, but I'm like, no, that's where it's at. It's these little moments where we're like, yes, it's busy, life is a lot, but in this moment with my 6 closest friends, this is where it's at, this connection, this love, this conversation. Right. And then the other little one, which I related to as well, was they were like, I'm having the time, when I think of a friend, I'm having the time to actually message or call them and let them know I'm thinking of them. Because they used to have all these thoughts and be wanting to be that friend who's letting them know you're thinking of them because you know they're having a hard time, but so caught up in work, life, kids, everything, and your own mental noise and your own mental mess that you didn't have the time to write the message. And then when you realize later, then your inner critic comes on and you talk to yourself in a horrible way because you're not showing up as the person you wanted to be, the friend you wanted to be, the mum you wanted to be, the colleague you wanted to be. And so you are so, so harsh on yourself. But they were like, no, I'm remembering those messages. And even when I did forget someone's birthday, I was like, oh, well, they'll be cool about it. Just like, so it's like these big patterns released, but then there's these nuances in how all the small things add up to be really big changes, and changes in who you are and how you show up in your world and who your new identity is.
Are you like, can you see into my soul right now? Is that what's happening? Are you?
Am I reading? I'm reading you intuitively.
Yeah. I knew this was going to happen. I knew you were going to call out like all the things within me. I'm very open on this. Like, yeah. My inner critic is probably, if you were to ask my husband, like the biggest issue I have, or I don't know. I don't know how to phrase that better. He would say,
greatest opportunity.
Yeah. Your growing edge, greatest opportunity is 1000% my inner critic and how hard I am on myself. I'm like, I wasn't even raised that way. I had parents who were like, did you try your best? Like, that's all we can ask. Like, it is the weirdest. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there of like, where the fuck did this come from? But it's like, it's incredible. It's incredible that we can have these, opportunities within us. And then you become a parent and it's like a magnifying glass with like the sun, and you're like creating the like, there's like a bushfire all of a sudden because you're like, totally. Oh my God, this just got actually magnified and has now created a forest fire. And it is just, it's wild, but it is so, so cool. And I could totally see how these transformations can happen with people just taking a second to stop thinking. Like the amount of thinking, the consumption. I actually wrote that in my journal for this week, my like diary or whatever it's called, my day planner. Started a new day planner, transformative. And I wrote, it was like, there's like little section for intentions. And I actually wrote like, consume less, do less, like just less. Space. Like less was like the word. And I could totally see how this, these little, I don't know, it's like this combination of things, like this type of work with someone like you, then the like combination of all the stuff that we are learning through our like woke nature is like great. Layer that on. And then like, pile all these things together to create intentions and then to go out and actually do something. So on that note, going out and just doing something about this. Not that we're adding to the to-do list, but someone's listening, they're feeling inspired. They're like, yes, yes, Fiona, yes. Apart from working with you or a practitioner like yourself, I know you're big on like you have the tools. What could someone do today, tonight to create create a bit of this rest, like this beautiful magic that you're talking about?
I think the one thing that I had to learn to do, and it's still not like, as I said, I'm a work in progress, is understanding the power of creating space in your life, especially if you're a parent listening, and I think most of your audience is. Because before you had kids, you had huge chunks in the evenings. If you didn't work in the evenings, you had chunks in the evenings and on the weekends where you could do nothing. And then once you're a parent, those spaces, those points in the day and on the weekend actually become even more important because that's when you're with the people you care the most about. So you need to be really intentional about creating spaces where you're not working or parenting, because where you have time for yourself. And I would encourage you in those spaces, go and do something where you can get in your body and try and remember what it's like to be in your body. So it might be dancing or yoga, even swimming. And if you're a high performer, like you and I, be aware of the intention you set when you go to do this activity and take time for yourself. This intention is around creating space, around giving my brain a break, around tuning in with my body and letting it speak to me however it wants to speak and share. And if nothing comes up, knowing that that is actually perfect, but you gave it the chance. And not having a goal attached to it.
Oof.
So you don't measure it.
Yep.
You measure it in how you feel and how connected you feel back to yourself, because you're trying to reconnect your mind to your body and your heart and create intimacy with yourself again, because most people lose it to a degree when they become a parent because they're just too overloaded, and they forget what it's like.
That's beautiful, creating that intimacy with yourself. So you're not trying to compete with the woman in yoga beside you who's got a better wild thing than you.
Yeah, and don't chase someone down on your road bike to get in front. Just be enjoying the ride.
Just go for it. Okay. Wow, Fiona, this has been incredible. I ask this to everybody. What is something that you were still trying to figure out?
Oh, God, so much.
It always starts that way. It's always like, oh God, I need to do a compilation of like the responses, the first second after that question. Okay, sorry.
Something that's come up just this weekend, so it's really relevant, is around, and this is, I think people will be able to feel and see themselves in this, is the importance, if you're an empath and a big space holder for your children, is that in the moment when they have a massive meltdown. So I had one of my kids go to get a shot at the doctor's and like not just resist, I mean kicking, punching. It's my child that I would have prepared, but they were like, I'm actually okay. I know what's happening, Mum. You don't need to do that this time, because we're getting to that age where they understand the process. And so the coaching didn't need to take place. But in the moment, they completely freaked out. And so it was a lot on my nervous system, and I was in that survival mode myself, but I was coaching, shot got done. But the piece that I'm still working on is that when I go into survival mode to hold them, or I go into a role in order to hold space for my child, I need to remember that my human and my heart needs time to process what happened as well. So after the fact, making sure you talk to your other half about it, or you journal, or you do something, or you go have either like if it's rage-based, go punch a punching bag, or go have a massive cry, put on Wicked and like the song that makes you cry. But like make sure you look after your human and you care for the part of you that struggled in that moment too. Because sometimes we do need to self abandon in the moment to be able to support our kids through stuff.
Yeah.
But the reparenting is that you know you've got to come back and also give yourself that love and support and allow yourself to process that hard time that you went through as well.
Such a good thing to remember. And where can everybody find you? I'm sure they've fallen in love with you. They want to know more about what this work is. So where can they find you?
So they can find me on Instagram at Fiona Walsh Coaching. I'm on LinkedIn as well, just under Fiona Walsh. And my podcast is called Limitless, Unlocking Your True Potential. If you'd like to tune in, we'll put a link in the show notes. But I bring on every 2 weeks, I bring on people just like you, and we hear these raw, vulnerable, untold stories of like what you're going through. Maybe a rock bottom moment is usually where we start, which Andrea started on hers, and we unravel what happened, what were some of the stories that came up, what were some of the patterns. So you sort of get to hear other people in their real life. And the coolest thing that's happened from my podcast is the feedback. The people are like, oh my God, I saw a part of me got validated, or a part of me felt loved because I saw myself in Andrea's story or Lisa's story. And so, yeah, it's a really cool forum. I love podcasting just like you do. So yes, they're the best ways to get in contact with me and hear more about my work.
Wonderful. And you're so good at it. And it is such a cool format that you've created. And I know that I would have loved when I was in the rock bottom moment that I described, which I've shared on this podcast about my husband's health journey and then subsequently becoming parents in the middle of all that.
Yes.
It's the stories about survival and getting through it and coming out the other side and hearing what that person would have told themselves, or like how they would have hugged themselves in the moment. I would have loved to have listened to Limitless back then, like 5 years ago, because I was like, I don't know. Nobody I know has gone through this particular, everyone goes through shit. No one's gone through this, like something kind of similar to this. I just felt very alone. And so I think it's such a beautiful, and it's not that it's, your podcast is not doom and gloom, but it's like, okay, this crazy shit happened to me. This was the moment where I was like, things need to change. And it's a stories about how people did that, which I think is really beautiful and is going to shake up the world.
I think as well, we don't, like, as much as I'm a really optimistic person and Limitless is all about possibility and potential, I do believe that we go through struggles and learnings and hardship in life in order to unlock who we truly are and our potential, because in those moments, we really prove to ourselves what we're made of. And most people surprise themselves once they're over the other side. So I truly believe that we're like a sum of all of our parts. It's not just the gold star parts, it's all of us.
It's not all the high achieving moments. Well, thank you, Fiona. You're amazing. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. It's been a beautiful conversation.